Well, and really good to see you all. Thank you so much for inviting me this evening. Aidan has invited me along this evening for a 10 or 15 minutes slot to be with you. Really appreciate your time. And I've been invited along to give you a bit of a quick run through, a quick talk about our carbon literacy training we offer at Keep Northern Ireland Beautiful, and a little bit about energy conservation in the home, pertinent current times. We know with all the issues around energy costs spiralling in the way that they are. But I'll start off, if that's okay, with a little bit of a summary about Keep Northern Ireland Beautiful. You may have heard of us, you may not have, but KNIB, as we summarise it, has been working with communities and nature conservation for many years. We focus mainly on environmental education. So we run the Eco Schools programs that you may have heard of in schools across Northern Ireland. I think we've got representation in most schools in Northern Ireland. We run that. We work on biodiversity recovery, protecting nature and improving natural habitat in all sorts of forms with communities and schools and groups. Lots of initiatives available. We work on waste and pollution solutions, improving the management of waste, reducing single-use plastic, focusing on a circular economy and how we can preserve resources. Lots to do there. And of course then climate action. And climate action is the department that I work in, and links to what I'm talking to you about tonight, really. So if we could move on to the next slide, please, Mary. So just to focus on climate change for a second, because it links to the training that I'm talking about. We will all have heard of climate change and the challenges around this. This is a bit of an overview about what climate change is. One of the greatest environmental challenges facing the world today, I think that's fair to say. Rising global temperatures are key due to greenhouse gases that we emit into the atmosphere through a range of human-induced actions, affecting weather patterns globally, rising sea levels, increased frequency and intensity of extreme weather, and we see and hear about that all the time. Only today on the radio there's stuff about those terrible flooding in South Africa. All over the world this threatens the way we live, our lives, our homes and our businesses increasing, and this is affecting all of us. It's close by and it's not a distant issue anymore. Next slide please, thank you. We've got a lot to gain by dealing with it and taking action on it and getting involved. We need to reduce the worst impacts of climate change and the global warming that's associated and get involved. There's often disagreement about how we get there. There's a range of conversations to have about it, and Aidan's been part of the carbon literacy training and been involved in some of those conversations. But what is clear is that in 2020, the Northern Ireland Assembly recognised the global climate situation as an emergency, the challenge being an emergency, and we needed to act quickly, and that citizens, communities, business, government and global industry all have their part to play in that. We've all got a role to play in dealing with it, and many communities are now starting to ask, how can we get involved and what can we do? Next slide please. And the carbon literacy training that we've developed is part of working with communities to say, this is how you can get involved and this is what you can do. There's a piece of training that we do. Now just to run through quickly, we do carbon literacy training for community leaders. Aidan's done that. And we run through a program with you and then give you materials that you can take and use to deliver to your groups. If that is not something you want to do, you can send your groups straight to a carbon smart communities training where we do all the training for you. And that is in a modular program or a one-day program. So there's two choices there. So we can deliver direct to your groups, or we can train you as a leader, and then you can roll out training. We give you the materials and the script and the pack and everything, and you can roll that out to your groups. We also train teachers, youth leaders, students, and we're going to be working with the Assembly and the civil service as well to offer training to them. But what is in the training is the next question, really. Next slide, please, Mary. We call it carbon literacy training. I know I've talked about climate change and we call it carbon literacy. So this is a definition of what carbon literacy is. It's that awareness of the costs, carbon dioxide costs and impacts of everyday activities. So switching on lights, getting in your car, heating your home, all of those things we know have an impact in terms of carbon or similar gases that go into the atmosphere and cause global warming and cause the impacts that we see around the world. And the process of learning about that's called carbon literacy. And we hope by the end of the programme, you feel you're in a position where you want to do something about it. And we take you and we go through and we discuss different ways you can get involved. It's for community leaders, and it has a structure of 8 to 10 hours. And we deliver it in 3 or 4 modules, depending on which one you do. And there's a bit of self-study, a bit of home learning, and you come together for an online meeting to discuss and work through some conversations around the issues and share with colleagues. And just to run through a little bit more about what we cover very briefly, we look at the different types of greenhouse gases. What is the greenhouse effect? We ask about that. We look at the different kind of gases that go into the atmosphere to cause it, the carbon cycle, and the fact that there is a natural balance to the carbon cycle that human-induced emissions have knocked out of sync, so there isn't in balance anymore, and that causes the problem. We look at the impacts across the globe, but also in Northern Ireland, and where we see what the problem is and how it's going to start to affect us more and more. And then we look at sort of policy and frameworks. There's a few examples here: the Programme for Government, Young People Strategy, the Sustainable Development Goals, and just see how key climate change education is around these key frameworks that the government are saying are so important to our future development. And these outcomes for our communities are absolutely vital in terms of health, well-being, economic stability, all of those things. Next slide, please. We then go on to look at climate justice, and we focus on the issues about difficult issues about where emissions are coming from, who's producing the most, and who are they affecting the most, and where's the justice in that? Where's the fairness in that? We look at vulnerable groups, often people who are currently struggling in society and don't have voices to represent themselves sufficiently and are struggling to get by, poverty, all sorts of things like that. Their lives will become even harder as the effects of climate change make themselves known to us. So we look at the justice and the equity issues in more detail for people as these effects come into play. Next slide, please. And then we move on to carbon footprint. So what do we as individuals, what is our carbon footprint? And you can look at your own carbon footprint and investigate that, but we talk to you about things that influence it, things that can help reduce your carbon footprint, things you can do, steps you can take in a whole variety of ways, and then give you the choice to start making decisions on that and to reduce your own carbon footprint. And hopefully we kind of pick apart the fact that actually you don't need to wait for things to be done around you. You can start making a huge difference yourself in your own lives and with your family, with your community, and you can influence change yourself. So I apologise that that's a real rapid run through of the carbon literacy training, but it's available to you, and I can give you a booking link through Aidan and get that to you if anybody's interested, and I can come and talk more about it or give you some leaflets and information about it if any of you are interested in that. But it does lead us on quite nicely to energy in the home and the need for us to conserve as much of it as we can. So I have a short few tips. I hope they are of interest. I'm not an energy expert, and I apologise if some of these sound obvious, but I think some of these things are some obvious things that we can do, as well as some interesting impacts and how much money do we save and what difference can we make. But you know, on the back of recent announcements that our energy bills are going to rise by something like £700. In the first instance, it's a bit of a shocking time for us all. Certainly the cost of my gas has suddenly gone up by 39% recently, worrying times for us all. So I'm just going to run through a few things. Heating in the home is one of the major costs in any home, I think we can agree, and thermostat settings are absolutely key in that. Now, the recommended temperature for homes is somewhere between 18 and 22, depending on your comfort. And clearly for people who are vulnerable and need that heat, that's absolutely key, that's at a higher range. I'm not suggesting for a second, people should turn it down. But if you can, and if it works for you to turn it down, it's safe. The Energy Saving Trust estimate that for every degree you turn down your thermostat, you can every year save something like 10% on your bills, which is a significant amount, depending on how much you pay. So that would be a starting point if you have thermostats in your home. Standby. We always hear. Sorry, if we can go back to the other slide, Mary. Being on standby is key to turn appliances off, things you're not using, turn them off. Again, estimates are that if you do that across the home, you can save something like just over £50 a year on your bills, which is, again, significant. These things add up. The energy efficient appliances is important if you're about to buy a new appliance and you're thinking you need to replace something in your home. I think looking at that A++ rating, tumble dryers, for example, use vast amounts of energy. What would be better is not to use tumble dryers, but to dry your clothes on a line, because you're reducing carbon emissions by doing that, but actually you'll be saving yourself money. And saving energy consumption. But a more efficient model of a tumble dryer, rather than an old out-of-date model, could save you something like £110 a year. So the efficiency of the model that you're using is absolutely key, and of course only be doing that if you need to buy one. Energy efficient fridge freezer could save you something like £70 a year, and a washing machine something like £50 a year. So as these things wear out, as they so often do, just when you don't want them to, if you need to buy a new one, you can get some savings there. But the energy efficient use of appliances, things like only filling up the kettle by the amount you want to use in your cup of tea. LED bulbs are absolutely vital. LED bulbs, you get about 90% light and 10% heat, but old bulbs, it's the opposite way round. LED bulbs cost about £1.70 a year to run. And you could, over the life of an LED bulb, save about £180 in comparison to old bulbs. Just thinking about drafts, clearly, I live in an old house, there's drafts everywhere, but that convection process of heat will always mean that warm air will get replaced by cold air. So if you've got chimneys and you're not using the fire, block up the chimneys so that cold air, warm air isn't firing its way up the chimney and escaping. Window seals, door brushes at the base of doors, absolutely vital. Heavy curtains. If you pull heavy curtains across at night, it can reduce somewhere between 13 and 17% of heat loss in your home. So if you've got heavy curtains or can fit heavy curtains and pull them across in the evenings, it can stop a huge amount of heat loss. Floorboards, if you've got gaps between the floorboards, again, it's worth looking at how you can seal that up in the right way, or gaps around loft hatches and things like that. And even keyholes in letterboxes. If you can cover those gaps in some way, it stops that convection process of warm air going out and cold air coming in. And of course, if it suits you, wear clothes appropriate to the temperature in your house. If you're able to turn your thermostat down a little, but put a couple of extra jumpers on, and that works for you, then that's something to think about as well. And it absolutely doesn't work for everybody. Some people don't want to do that at all. The last one is that kind of home insulation for your loft is the cheapest one to do, but it's not, it's not without cost, obviously. And cavity wall insulation or thermal boards are key as well. And next and final slide, please, Mary. Thank you. So just hot water use is significant in terms of the energy you use. The amount of hot water obviously will impact your bills. So the amount of hot water you use is key. If you've got a hot water tank and not a combi boiler, then insulating that is vital. Not everybody does have it insulated. So if you haven't, that would be key, because you reduce the heat loss and therefore the need to keep the water at a certain temperature. And also use your controls to turn on and off the boiler on and off to only heat the water you need, clearly. Now, power showers, there's always a lot of debate about showers. They can use as much hot water in 5 minutes as a full bath of hot water. So they use a huge amount of energy in the home. You could get an eco shower head where it aerates the water, but it still feels like a power shower, but it uses much less water in the time you're in there. Or you could even get a shower timer, and the water authorities suggest a 4-minute shower is somewhere that finds a balance. It's enough time to have a decent wash, but is good for any energy conservation. But everybody will make their own decision around that. Even things like washing up, instead of doing washing up under a tap, but washing up in a bowl. It's amazing how many people do wash stuff under a tap and just let it run away, and you use vast amounts of water doing that. Clothing layers we've talked about. Electric heaters, if you're able just to heat one room in your house, and turn your thermostat generally down in the house, but just heat one room in your house. Sometimes electric heaters are an economical way to approach that. But not always. You have to check that out and be a bit careful. But you can save on your bills there in that way as well. And then central heating controls generally, I've talked about thermostats for the whole home, but thermostatic valves on your radiators are absolutely key to make sure you manage the temperatures in different rooms across the home completely. And the heating system you use is one to look at as well. If your home is well insulated, it can be worth, if you want to make a big investment, to look at solar or ground source heat pumps or air source heat pumps. And I can send links on how to help making the choice around that to see if that's right for you. But you do need to have a well insulated home. Insulation is the first port of call, really, before you start looking at alternative heating systems in that way. I think that, and there's some information on the screen there for Northern Ireland Energy Advice Centre, and I think they're a good organisation to go to if you need some more guidance and help. And with the large number of people that still have oil eating their homes and the rapid rise in the cost of oil per litre now, I think oil buying clubs might be something of interest to people as well, where based on the idea that the larger number of people purchasing oil, you're going to get a better price, and that price, the savings generally get shared out across everybody who's in that club. And then lastly, shifting to different suppliers. There's a link there for price comparison sites to help with that decision making. So apologies, that's a real rapid fire run through of everything. I hope I've stayed within time. And if there are any questions, do we have time for that, Mary? Oh, sorry, you're on mute.
We have, yeah, we have.
Yeah, okay, that's fine.
Yeah, so if there's anybody has any points they want to bring across at this stage to Scott, or any queries?
Yep.
Hi, Kathy.
Hello. Sorry, I'm new and with a new group tune-up. Yeah, that was a really good presentation with lots of excellent tips in there. You know, I'd say quite a few people are aware of a lot of those tips. Just wondering, you haven't really mentioned the issues around how, you know, big major corporations and people who are more wealthy are the highest emitters. So what sort of work's being done by KNIB to ensure that those sections of society are also doing everything that they can to reduce their impacts?
Well, there's two things really. One is about widening the conversation. So part of the carbon literacy training materials is about opening up the conversation about climate change. And the more groups and individuals like yourselves here tonight that we can get to and talk to and offer this training to, where you can come together to talk about these things, it spreads awareness. And one of the things about that open, inclusive conversation process is that more and more people will get an understanding of how important the small changes you need to make in your life are. And that can influence then people who you know, where we live in the world gives us the luxury of being able to have a high carbon footprint as one of those countries that are high emitters. And we can all make a huge difference by small changes we can make and larger changes we can make. And the training that we provide digs into that and will look at that and give us the opportunity to consider all of those things. So that's one way of tackling that issue, Kathy, at a community level, I would say. And the other side of that for KNIB at a governmental level is that we do a lot of work on lobbying the department in terms of policy change and beginning to ensure that there is a filter around looking at economic development and structural and strategic change that actually focuses on the environment, that ensures that all government decision making is based around this climate change filter, because unless that happens, or unless we go way down that path of that happening, then we're not going to make the changes that we need to, the deep changes that we need to. And it can be done without turning our lives upside down. It's just that we need to start considering choices, consumption, you know, how much choice and how much consumption do we need while the planet is heating up. We can start thinking about that. So those two are the most sort of immediate things about how we're dealing with that. But you're absolutely right. The gap between the global north and the global south in terms of carbon emissions is enormous. You know, our lifestyles, our shared lifestyles emit enormous amounts of carbon and equivalent gases into the atmosphere. And there are relatively minor things we can do to begin to alter that. And we have a bit of a responsibility to do that. But it's just interesting to hear people's take on it and how they feel they can get involved, because people come to it in different ways at different times and can do different things, and that's okay. And you don't have to be perfect and get it all right. That's the thing. You can just step into it and start. Does that answer it a little bit, Kathy?
Yeah, very
right?
well answered.
Yeah.
Thanks, Scott.
Yeah, okay.
Aidan, do you want to say something just about the availability of the training then? That because you have to, because you've done the training already, you can deliver it out to groups?
Yeah, well, what we're thinking of doing was the two of us maybe who have gone to start delivering together, like co-hosting it, and roll it out to groups, you know. But again, it's something that we're planning, but we just haven't got around to organizing those things yet. But we're going to be doing that in the near future. But it's something that I think people are interested in and they want to get involved in and see how, even in small ways, and we're thinking of community groups and community buildings and how, because it's difficult to run those and maintain them and keep them up and make them energy efficient. So I mean, it's trying to sort of look at small things that the people can do individually and as groups to help improve things for players going forward.
And we're keen to help that process in any way, Aidan. If, again, as I say, if you would rather we ran some programs, we can deliver at scale really to community groups. And then if leaders such as yourself wanted to come in and work with us in that delivery, we can offer that as well.
Sure.
If any of you are interested and want to put people on or want us to organise a programme specifically for you, we can do that. So do get in contact. I think, Aidan, you have my contact details.
Yes, I have,
yeah. So I'd be keen to help in any way we can. And just lastly, for now, we can cover the costs. So at the moment, because it's funded by DERA, there's no direct cost to you. We can cover the costs. We've developed materials, the delivery costs, you don't get any of that. And there is, you get a certificate at the end of the process from the Carbon Literacy Project, who certify the programme to make sure it's at a certain level. It's a UK-based organisation that makes sure it's delivered at a certain level. It usually costs £10 a head, but we can cover the cost of that for now. So if you're interested, it would be worth getting in quick, just while the funding is there.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Scott. And your presentation, I must say, was very engaging as well. It was great to see all the pictures and drawings and stuff. So well done on that. Are you able to stay with us for another wee while, or if you have to drop off?
No, I can for about 15 minutes, if that's okay with you guys. Yeah. Thank you very much. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Scott.